If I could go back and change one single moment from my entire life, it would not be something dramatic or obviously dangerous. It would be one dance. One ordinary, joyful, completely innocent dance at the Harvest Festival on a cool October evening when the lanterns were swinging and the air smelled like cider and wood smoke and everything felt safe. I had no idea standing there, moving to that music with a smile on my face, that I was setting off a chain reaction that would quietly destroy the most important relationships in my life. I had no idea that within weeks, people I had trusted my entire life would be looking at me differently. I had no idea that one moment that felt like nothing would become the moment everything changed. My name is Hannah, and I grew up in a small Amish community in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Faith was everything where I came from, not just as a belief, but as a way of breathing, a way of organizing every single day. My family had deep roots in that community. My father was a respected man, quiet and steady, the kind of man other men turned to when they needed guidance. My mother ran our household with a kind of gentle authority that I always admired and hoped one day I could carry myself. I had two brothers and a younger sister, and we were close in the way families are when they share everything: work, meals, prayers, silence, and seasons. I was 22 years old, and I had always tried to be the kind of daughter and community member my parents could be proud of. I worked hard, I kept my head down, I did not look for trouble, and trouble had never really come looking for me. Before the festival, my life was stable in the best possible way. I woke up early every morning, helped with breakfast, worked in the garden, spent afternoons sewing or preserving food, and ended each day feeling genuinely grateful. I had a close friendship with a girl named Miriam who had been my best friend since we were children and who could make me laugh harder than anyone alive. I also had something else that felt precious and tender and new, a quiet understanding with a young man named Elias who came from a good family on the north side of our community. Nothing was formally announced. Nothing had been spoken aloud to our families yet, but we both knew something was growing between us, and it felt solid and right, the kind of thing you do not rush because you do not want to damage it by moving too fast. The Harvest Festival was the most anticipated event of our entire year. Every family contributed something: food, crafts, music, labor, and for a few days every autumn, the whole community exhaled together. Children ran freely. The older men told long stories near the fire. The women shared recipes and laughter. And yes, there was music and there was dancing, not the kind that would raise eyebrows, but the folk-style dancing that had always been part of our festival tradition. It was joyful and communal and completely accepted. I had danced at the Harvest Festival every year since I was old enough to stand on my own 2 feet, and nobody had ever given it a second thought. That year, a family had recently moved into our community from another district: a father, a mother, and their grown son named Daniel. Daniel was 25, quiet but easy to talk to, and the community had welcomed his family warmly. He was not a stranger to Amish life, but he was new to our district, which meant people were still figuring out where he fit. I had spoken to him maybe 3 or 4 times before the festival, always in group settings, always with other people around. There was nothing between us except basic friendliness. On the evening of the festival, when the music started and people began pairing off to dance, Daniel walked over and extended his hand to me in the most natural, unassuming way, the way anyone asks anyone to dance at a community celebration. I said yes without hesitation because there was absolutely no reason to say no. We danced for maybe 4 minutes. That was it. 4 minutes of completely ordinary, publicly visible, entirely appropriate dancing in the middle of a crowd of people I had known my whole life. I laughed a little because I stepped on his foot. He laughed back. And then the music ended. We thanked each other, and I went back to standing beside Miriam. I did not think about it again that night. I went home feeling light and happy, the way you always feel after a good festival, and I slept soundly and woke up the next morning expecting everything to be exactly the same as it always was. But it was not the same, and it would not be the same for a very long time. The first sign came 3 days after the festival when Miriam pulled me aside after Sunday service and told me that some of the older women had been talking. Not loudly, not cruelly, just talking the way people in small communities talk when something catches their attention. Someone had noticed that I danced with Daniel, and someone else had remembered that Daniel's previous district had asked his family to leave quietly under circumstances that were apparently not entirely clear. Nobody knew the full story, nobody had bothered to ask, but the pieces were already being connected in people's minds, and I was now one of those pieces. I told Miriam it was nothing, 4 minutes of dancing at a public festival. I told myself it would pass because it had to pass, there was nothing there. But then Elias became distant. Not cold, not cruel, just suddenly unavailable in a way that felt deliberate. He stopped finding reasons to speak to me after service. He stopped the small, subtle things that had been quietly building something between us. And when I finally managed to speak to him alone, he did not accuse me of anything directly. He simply said that he had heard things, and that he was not sure what to think, and that he needed time. The gentleness in his voice somehow made it worse. I walked away from that conversation feeling like the ground had shifted beneath me and I was still trying to figure out where my feet were. My mother noticed something was wrong before I said a word to her. She was like that she could read the air inside our house the way other people read a page. She sat beside me one evening while I was mending, and she asked me quietly what had happened at the festival. When I told her, she was silent for a long moment. Then she said something that shook me more than anything else had so far. She said that whatever my intentions were, people remember what they see, not what was meant. And the way she said it, not unkindly but with a kind of tired certainty, made me realize that even she was uncertain about how to defend me. That was the turning point. Because in that moment, I stopped waiting for this to resolve itself naturally, and I started paying closer attention to what was actually happening around me. And that was when I discovered the truth that changed everything. The rumors about Daniel's previous district were not vague. They were specific, and they were serious, and someone in our community had been carrying that information since before the festival and had chosen the festival and my dance as the moment to finally share it. Not openly, but quietly, in the way that quiet things spread fastest. I had been standing next to Daniel when I should have known to stand away, but I could not have known because nobody told me. Someone had used my innocence as the backdrop for a story they had already decided to tell. When I understood that, I felt something shift inside me, not toward anger, but toward clarity. I could not undo the dance. I could not unspeak the rumors, but I could stop waiting for other people to restore my reputation for me. I went to the elders. I asked to speak honestly about what had happened and why I had been caught in the middle of something I never chose to be part of. It was one of the hardest conversations of my life because I had to sit in a room full of people I deeply respected and explain myself with no guarantee that they would believe me. I was trembling the entire time, but I spoke plainly and I spoke truthfully, and I did not make excuses, and I did not shift blame. I simply told them what I knew and what I did not know, and I asked them to see the difference. It did not fix everything immediately. Some relationships took months to soften back to what they had been. A few never fully returned. Miriam stayed beside me through all of it, and I will never forget that as long as I live. Elias and I, that took the longest. But he came back eventually, slowly, the way trust comes back when it has been shaken but not completely broken. And Daniel's family, the truth about their situation eventually became fully known, and it was far less dramatic than the rumors had made it sound, which surprised almost no one who had been paying real attention. What I carry with me now from all of it is this one moment that felt like nothing revealed everything I needed to know about assumptions, about how fast perception travels in a close community, about how little it takes to become a story someone else is telling. I learned that silence can feel like guilt even when you have done nothing wrong. I learned that speaking up for yourself, even when your voice is shaking, is not pride, it is necessary. I learned that the people who stay beside you when everything is falling apart are the ones your entire life has been quietly preparing you to recognize. And I learned that sometimes the hardest seasons do not come to destroy you. They come to teach you something that easier times never could have reached. Have you ever experienced a situation where one small decision created consequences you never saw coming? I would genuinely love to hear your story. Leave it in the comments, because I know I am not the only one who has felt this way. And if this story reached something inside you, if it made you think about trust or assumptions or the courage it takes to speak truth when everything around you is uncertain, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today, because sometimes the reminder that we are not alone in our hardest moments is exactly what another person is waiting for.